They used to say no white man ever made it back from meeting the Apache Queen, until one cowboy shared her tent. The stories all sounded the same. Men rode into that canyon, and only their horses came back. Empty saddles, blood on the reins, but never a body. No proof of what really happened in that valley where smoke curled from fires no one dared explain. Sterling Roads should have been just another tale. Another missing man, another horse showed up at the edge of town, breathing, hard and wild-eyed. But 3 days after he disappeared into Apache country, something happened that shouldn't have happened. A kid playing near the river saw him, alive, walking between the red canyon walls beside a woman whose face was painted in shifting desert patterns. The child ran home, stammering about the cowboy who wasn't dead. Said he moved differently, like he belonged there. Said he didn't look lost, he looked at peace, and the woman, she wore white, not dusty or stained, but clean. Too clean, like it didn't belong in this world, like it had never touched blood or dirt or anything that dies. Everyone knew what happened to the men who found her, everyone but Sterling. But here's what no one understood yet. He wasn't walking out of the canyon, he was walking deeper in, and the woman who should have ended him was the one leading the way. The real question wasn't how he lived through meeting the Apache Queen. It was why she let him. 3 weeks before that, Sterling Roads had been a dead man with a saddle. A bullet in the shoulder from a job gone wrong back in Tucson. Infection had set in, and fever dreams came hard. He couldn't tell the heat from the hallucination. His horse, an old stubborn mare named Copper, had been carrying him more than he was riding her. Bounty men were 2 days behind. Maybe 1. Sterling knew he couldn't outrun them. The canyon rose like a mirage through the shimmer. Tall, red walls promising shade, maybe water. He didn't care about the tails scratched into rock or the warning bones bleached by sun. Dying men don't have the luxury of belief. Copper picked her way down a trail worn smooth by wind and rain. The air-cooled, but the descent never ended. Just kept winding tighter and darker until the sky above was a thread. His head sagged forward, eyes closed. He never saw her. When he came to, he was laid out on pelts inside a low shelter built from wood and hide. The air smelled like sage and something sharper, something clean. His shoulder had been tended, wrapped in soft cloth that smelled faintly, of desert flowers. A shape moved at the door and his hand reached for a gun on instinct. The holster was gone. "You were dying," came a voice. Soft, steady, accented English. "Men who are dying don't need weapons." She stepped into the light. And in that moment, Sterling understood why the stories came in whispers. Not because she was cruel, but because she was something else entirely. Beautiful, yes, but in a way that made your chest go still. Tall, poised. Hair braided with silver beads that caught the firelight. Her dress was white deerskin, hand-beaded, the kind of work that took months, maybe years. But it wasn't the beads that stopped him. It was her eyes, dark as winter skies, but warm, curious. Not the kind that judged, but the kind that studied. Like she was trying to read something on his face, like she was looking for a path home, and maybe she'd just found it. "You're her," Sterling croaked, his throat dry and cracked from fever. "The Apache Queen." A small smile touched her lips. "My name is Ayana, and you, Cowboy, have a choice to make." Sterling tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his shoulder. "What kind of choice?" She knelt beside him, close enough for him to see the faint lines around her eyes. He could smell the sage in her hair. "The same choice every man faces when he enters my land," she said. "Trust me, or die trying to leave." Her fingers lightly touched the bandage on his shoulder, and in that moment something shifted, not just in the air, in him. Something sharp, alive, not fear, not a threat, just the way she was looking at him. "Why?" Sterling asked. "Why help me? They say you kill men like me." Ayana's smile faded. Her face changed, something colder underneath. "Because, Sterling Roads, you're not like the others." She knew his name. Somehow, impossibly, she knew exactly who he was. He woke later to voices outside the shelter. Dawn bled amber light through the hide walls. His shoulder didn't scream anymore. The fever had broken. His mind was clearer than it had been in days. Ayana's voice carried from beyond the entrance, firm and fast in Apache. Someone answered. A young man, angry, holding back fire. When she stepped inside, the tension clung to her like heat from iron. "My nephew questions my judgment," she said. "Thinks I shouldn't be the one looking after you." She knelt and began checking his bandages. Her movements were swift, focused. "Kota believes you're a trap, that others will follow, that death rides behind you." Sterling watched her. "Work." Her hands were smaller than he expected, but sure, strong. "Maybe he's right," he said. "Maybe," she echoed. Her eyes met his. "But I don't think so." "Why? What makes you think I'm different?" Ayana didn't answer. Instead, she unwrapped the old bandage and reached for fresh cloth. Her movements brought her close. He could feel her breath, smell the faint scent of wildflowers on her skin, and for a second the world slowed. When was the last time someone patched him up with care, he wondered. "You could have taken from us," she said quietly. "Stolen horses, supplies, vanished into the hills, but instead you're here, questioning my judgment." Sterling watched her braid fall forward. As she leaned over his shoulder, "Maybe I'm just too weak to run," he muttered. "You're stronger than you act." Her fingers brushed his collarbone as she tied the final knot. Men don't survive what you've survived by accident. The moment stretched between them, tight and silent. Then Ayana stood, gathering the old bandages, and the stillness cracked. "Kota wants to move the camp," she said. "Says you're too dangerous to keep. He's probably not wrong." "No," she said, straightening her dress. "But this isn't his choice." Outside, hooves broke the quiet, heavy, rushed. Not Apache ponies, not soft desert rhythms. This was the sound of men who meant business. Ayana froze. Her face turned to stone. "They found you," she whispered. Sterling was already trying to rise. Pain flared in his shoulder, but he ignored it. "How many?" She crossed the shelter, peering through a slit in the hide. Her voice came back like a drawn bowstring. "4, armed. They followed your tracks from the canyon mouth." "I have to go," Sterling said, frantically searching for his gear. "If they see me here, they'll bring fire down on us all," Ayana finished, turning to him. Her eyes burned now, focused, fierce. "That's why you're not going anywhere." He stared at her. "What? You want to know why I helped you? Why I'm risking my own for a man I barely know?" The sound of hooves drew closer. Soon they'd be at the edge of camp, asking questions, kicking down doors. "Because," she said, stepping in close, voice low, "I think you might be worth the risk." The hoofbeats stopped. Just outside, Ayana reached up and pressed a finger to his lips. The touch sparked down his spine. "Not a word," she breathed. Then she moved to a wooden chest in the corner. Her hands returned holding a folded bundle. A long skirt, a blouse, a shawl. Sterling blinked. "You're not serious." "Unless you've got a better plan," she whispered, thrusting the bundle into his arms. "Put it on. Keep your head low, don't speak." Sterling could hear the voices now, rough, clipped, full of threat. "We're looking for a man," one of them called out. "Wounded, riding a copper mare." As Sterling struggled into the unfamiliar skirt and shawl, Ayana stepped outside. Her voice rose, calm and deliberate, thick with an accent that made her sound unsure in English. "No white man here. Only women, children." "Don't play dumb," one of the men snapped. "We know he came through here." The venom in the bounty hunter's voice made Sterling's jaw tighten. He moved toward the entrance, but Ayana's look stopped him cold. One glance was all it took. "You search if you want," she said loudly, "but you find nothing." Sterling heard the scuff of boots, the creak of leather, the unmistakable clink of weapons being readied. Through a narrow seam in the hide wall, he caught glimpses. 4 men fanning out, pushing into shelters, dumping baskets, kicking over pots. Then came another voice, closer now. "Well, well, what have we got here?" Sterling's heart kicked. Harder. One of them was heading straight for their shelter. He pulled the shawl low over his face, hunched his shoulders, made himself smaller. His breath caught in his throat. The flap lifted. A grey-bearded man with mean eyes leaned in, scanning the room. His gaze paused on Sterling for just a moment too long, then moved on. "Just an old woman," the man muttered, stepping back out. Sterling didn't breathe until the hoofbeats returned, faint at first, then growing distant as the bounty hunters rode away. Ayana returned a minute later, her face still composed, but her eyes gave her away. Something in them had cracked. "They'll be back," she said, barely above a whisper. That was just the first pass. Sterling's hands trembled slightly as he began removing the borrowed skirt, adrenaline still buzzing through his blood. "I should have gone with them," he said. "Should have let them take me. Would have kept you safe." Ayana moved to help him, folding the skirt carefully, her fingers brushing his. "That wouldn't solve anything. It might protect your people. My people made their choice when they chose me to lead them." She smoothed the fabric and set it aside. "I made mine when I pulled you out of the canyon." The weight of her words sat heavy in the space between them. Sterling looked at her, really looked, past the steady voice and sharp eyes, past the calm she wore like armor. He saw the fear she hid, the risk she was carrying, and the way she kept looking at him like maybe he was worth it. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough. "Why are you doing this?" Ayana moved closer, close enough for Sterling to see gold flecks in her dark eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Because," she said softly, "when I look at you I don't see a white man, or a killer, or an outlaw." She reached up, touching his cheek gently. "I see someone who's lost everything, and still chooses to fight." For a second, neither of them moved. The space between them folded in like cloth. Sterling leaned into her hand, drawn by something he didn't want to name. "They'll come back," Ayana whispered. "After dark. When they do, you'll need to stay close, very close." "How close?" he asked, watching her. She hesitated, color rising in her cheeks. "Close enough that anyone watching thinks we're—" Her voice caught. "Thinks we're what?" Sterling said, his voice low. Ayana met his eyes. And in that look he saw it, his own feelings reflected back at him. Hunger, hesitation, something unspoken. "Thinks we're exactly what we've been pretending not to be," she said. Night settled over the canyon like a curtain. The air turned dense and electric. Sterling sat beside Ayana's fire, the shadows dancing across his face. Every sound beyond the camp felt sharper now. Twigs snapping, wind brushing the cliffs, a far-off owl calling once, then falling quiet. His shoulder had healed enough to move again, but his gun was still missing, kept somewhere out of reach. A reminder. "They'll come from the North Ridge," Ayana said softly, not looking up from the beadwork in her lap. "It's the only side that offers cover." "You've done this before," Sterling said. Ayana nodded, her fingers never stopping. "Too many times." Ayana's needle flashed in the firelight as she worked slow, steady patterns into a strip of leather. "White men always come here looking for something," she said. "Gold, land, someone to blame for the weight they carry. They always think they're the first to find us." Sterling watched her hands. Every motion was precise, practiced, like her words. What happened to the others? She didn't look up. The ones who came looking for a fight? They found one. Her voice was calm, but something sharp lingered beneath the surface. "And the ones who came looking for shelter? That depended on why they needed it." Sterling looked at her through the shadows. "And which one am I?" Ayana paused, then lifted her eyes, firelight flickering in their dark depths. "I'm still deciding." A sound broke the silence, faint but clear. The scuff of boot leather on stone. Ayana's hands stilled. "They're coming," Sterling said. "Yes." She set her work aside and moved toward him, settling close enough that her knee brushed his. The heat between them wasn't just from the fire. "Remember what I told you," she whispered. "Stay close. Don't speak unless I tell you to." Sterling nodded, trying to ignore the way her nearness pulled at him. The scent of sage and something purely Ayana filled his lungs. "Ayana," he began, but she cut him off. "It won't go wrong." Her hand found his, fingers threading through his with surprising strength. "Trust me." Outside, the footsteps grew louder, multiple sets trying to stay quiet, but betrayed by loose rocks and unfamiliar ground. Sterling counted. At least 6. The original 4 hadn't come alone. Ayana gave his hand one last squeeze before slipping away. She moved to the fire and banked it low, leaving the camp wrapped in shadows. Then she came back, settling beside him with practiced ease. Her body leaned into his like it belonged there. "Put your arm around me," she murmured. Sterling hesitated, then slid his good arm around her waist. She rested her head in the curve of his shoulder. To anyone watching, they were just two lovers sharing a quiet night by the fire. "When they arrive," Ayana whispered, her breath warm against his skin, "let me speak. No matter what they say about you, or me, or my people, stay quiet." Sterling's pulse pounded in his ears. "What if they recognize me?" "They won't," she said, "not like this." Her hand came to rest on his chest just over his heart. "You're not the same man who rode into my canyon." Before he could ask what she meant, voices crept through the night. Low murmurs, metal clinking, guns being readied. The bounty hunters had arrived. "Showtime," Ayana breathed, and Sterling felt her body go still against his. A shadow flickered at the edge of the firelight. Then another, then more. Armed figures ringed the camp, their faces hidden in the dark beyond the glowing coals. "Evening, folks," came a voice. Familiar, cold, the same graying man who'd searched their shelter earlier. "Hope we're not interrupting anything." Ayana lifted her head slowly, blinking like she'd just been woken from sleep. When she spoke, her voice was thick with accent, each word chosen with care. "You wake us. Is late. For visitors." The man stepped closer, rifle resting easy in his hands but ready. "Apologies, ma'am, we're still tracking a wounded man. Thought he might have circled back." Sterling kept his face turned slightly away from the light. His breath slow, measured. Ayana's hand remained on his chest, not just for show now, but firm as if to remind him, "Don't move." "No white man here," she said, her voice harder now. "Only how you say?" She glanced at Sterling, eyes softening just enough, then back at the hunter. "My man." A snort came from one of the others. "Your man? Since when do Apache Queens take white lovers?" The words landed like a slap. Sterling felt Ayana's body stiffen, but her voice stayed steady. "Since I choose what is good for my heart." "Well, ain't that sweet?" the graying man said, circling the fire slowly. "Mind if we take a closer look at Romeo here?" Ayana's grip tightened in Sterling's shirt. "He is shy," she said, "does not speak your tongue well." "That's so." The bounty hunter crouched down, eyeing them both, his face now just feet away. "Well, shy or not," he said, eyes narrowing, "I'd sure like to see them pretty eyes of his." Sterling didn't move, didn't blink. The moment hung in the dark, like a match above dry grass. One wrong move, one flicker of recognition, and it would all fall apart. Bullets would fly. Children sleeping in nearby shelters would be caught in the crossfire. Innocent lives lost because of choices Sterling had made long before this canyon. Slowly, carefully he lifted his head. The fire cast a low glow across their shelter, but Ayana had placed them well. Shadows slid across his face, softening the edges that might give him away. More than that, the closeness between them, the way she leaned into him, the quiet intimacy, painted a picture the bounty hunters weren't expecting. One that didn't fit their story. Ayana's voice cut through the quiet, sharp and controlled. "Satisfied?" The graying man didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on Sterling, searching for something. Sterling met it head-on, giving nothing but calm. He let his eyes hold the kind of peace a man might feel when sitting beside the woman he loves. It wasn't hard, not with Ayana beside him. Her scent filled his lungs, her warmth pressed against him. Pretending didn't feel like pretending. At last the bounty hunter stood straighter. "He's darker than I expected," the man said. "Sunburnt, weathered. Almost looks like he belongs here." Ayana didn't blink. "He does belong here." "With you?" Another voice sneered. A younger hunter spat into the dirt. "Disgusting. A white man lying with a savage." The word hit Sterling like a slap. His jaw clenched, his hand twitched, instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. But Ayana's hand was already on his chest, pressing firm. A silent reminder. Not here. "Not now. Watch your tongue," she said, her voice cold and low. "This is my camp, my land. My people have arrows trained on you right now from places you can't see. Keep talking like that, and you won't be leaving this canyon." Sterling didn't doubt her. He could feel the weight in the air, the silent watch of unseen eyes. The tension of bowstrings pulled tight in the dark. The greying man raised a hand to steady his group. "Easy now," he said. "We don't want trouble. Just doing our job." He touched the brim of his hat, his gesture somewhere between courtesy and sarcasm. "Didn't mean to disturb your evening." Then, one by one, they turned, shadows slipping back into deeper shadows. The soft echo of footsteps faded into silence. Sterling stayed still. Only when the last sound had gone did he exhale. "They're gone," Ayana whispered, but she didn't move. "Not for long," she added, voice soft but steady. Sterling looked at her, really looked. There was something in her eyes now. Not just relief, something deeper, something dangerous. "That was close," he said. "You could have handed me over." "Yes," she replied. "I could have." "Why didn't you?" She reached up, her hand resting on the side of his neck. Her thumb brushed along his jawline. "Because I meant what I said," she murmured. "You belong here now." The words settled between them like the coals in their fire. Low, steady. Burning, Sterling leaned closer. Not out of impulse, out of gravity, out of need. "Ayana!" She lifted her fingers to his lips. "Come," she said, standing in one graceful motion. "We can't stay by the fire. It's too exposed." She held out her hand. Sterling stared at it, knowing full well that taking it would change something. Would cross a line. He took it anyway. She led him through the quiet camp, past sleeping figures and low tents, until they reached a shelter set apart from the rest. This one was larger. Woven walls, a carved wooden doorframe, soft hides underfoot. Ayana's space. Sterling hesitated just inside the threshold. "So your tent," he said, voice low. She turned toward him, her face lit by the warm glow of a small oil lamp. "Our tent," she said gently. "If you want it to be." She moved through the space with quiet confidence, lighting the lamp and adjusting a woven blanket near the bed. The golden light revealed everything Sterling hadn't noticed before, the care in how she'd arranged her things, the small details that spoke of solitude, of someone who rarely let anyone this close. "They'll be watching us now," Ayana said, settling onto the furs. "They'll be waiting for signs, for cracks," Sterling nodded. "And if they come back?" She met his eyes. "Then we show them the same thing we did tonight." "The bounty hunters won't quit," Ayana said. "They'll post lookouts along the ridges. Wait for you to slip up." Sterling stood near the tent's entrance, silhouetted against the faint light outside. His voice came low, uncertain. "Maybe I should stay." Ayana turned too quickly. The word hit harder than she meant it to. Her composure faltered, just enough for Sterling to see the fear she rarely let show. "Please, stay." He knelt. Beside her, close enough to see the silver threads in her hair shimmer in the lamplight. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise me," she whispered. Her hand found his. Their fingers locked, and the grip she gave him carried more strength than desperation. "Promise me you won't sneak out in the night to protect us," she said. "I've lost too many people to brave ideas that ended in graves." The pain in her voice cut deeper than any blade. "It wasn't weakness, and it was memory, I promise," Sterling said, steady. Ayana studied him for a long time, like she was memorizing something she didn't want to lose. "When I was a girl, my grandmother used to tell stories," she said, "about spirits who could walk between worlds, warriors who belonged everywhere and nowhere. I'm no spirit, Ayana. I'm just a man who's made a mess of things." "Are you?" she asked, her voice quiet as she leaned in, her hand tracing the scar along his jaw. "Because the man who rode into my canyon was running from death. The man beside me now, he's running toward something." Sterling caught her hand, held it to his cheek. "What am I running toward?" She looked at him for a moment and then answered in barely a breath. "Me." The word was soft, but it hit like thunder. The space between them vanished. Sterling lifted, his good arm gently cradling her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Ayana," he said. "I know what this means," she replied, voice even. "A white man, an Apache woman. The world doesn't accept that. They won't accept us." "Then we don't give them the choice," he said. "We make our own world." The kiss came slow, natural, born from too many years spent holding pain. It was quiet at first. then deepened, like something that had waited too long to happen. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Ayana smiled faintly, her forehead resting against his. "They were right about one thing," she whispered. "No. White man leaves my domain unchanged." Sterling leaned his forehead against hers. "What about you? Are you unchanged?" A flicker of a smile touched her lips. "I stopped being unchanged the day I chose to save you." Outside, a nightbird cried across the canyon. The sound echoed and was answered, not by another bird, but by a human whistle. Sterling went still. "They're setting up watch," he said, the soldier in him taking over. "They'll try to box us in, starve us out, cut off water, cut off escape." Ayana didn't flinch. "Let them try," she said. Her voice carried that quiet steel he had come to respect. "This canyon has held my people for generations. We know every spring, every crevice, every path that doesn't show on a map." Sterling turned toward her. "You're not just talking about waiting them out." Ayana's smile turned sharp. "Tomorrow," she said, "those men will learn why the stories say no white man survives meeting the Apache Queen." Sterling felt a chill, not from fear, from knowing. "What are you planning?" "Justice," she said. She stood, moved to the lamp and blew it out, plunging them into darkness. And after that, her voice drifted from the shadows. "We'll see if you truly meant what you said about building something of our own." Dawn didn't rise quiet. It came with the panic of horses and the distant shouts of frightened men. Sterling woke with Ayana still tucked against his side, her head on his shoulder, dark hair spilled across his chest. For one heartbeat, the world outside didn't matter. Then the shouting pulled him back to reality. "What's happening?" he asked, already reaching for his gun belt, now resting beside him, quietly returning sometime in the night. "Justice," Ayana said, already. On her feet, moving with fluid calm as she dressed. "My nephew Kota and his warriors spent the night making things difficult," Ayana said, braiding her hair with quick, practiced hands. Through the tent walls, Sterling could hear the chaos echoing across the canyon, angry voices, cursing, boots stomping, horses scattered, packs slashed open, water darkened. With desert mud, he didn't need to ask, he knew what he was hearing. "You planned this." "I planned to give them a choice," Ayana corrected. "Leave now with what little pride they have left or stay and face what happens when you threaten my people." Sterling buckled on his gun belt. For the first time in weeks, he felt like himself, or maybe someone better. "And if they choose to fight," Ayana's smile turned sharp, like flint catching light. "Then they'll find out why legends grow around certain names." The tent flap opened. Kota stood there, eyes hard, jaw tight. He looked at Sterling with something between suspicion and acceptance, then turned to Ayana, speaking fast in Apache. "What did he say?" Sterling asked. "The bounty hunters are packing up," Ayana said, "but their leader wants to speak with me before they go." They stepped out together into the morning light. Sterling felt eyes on him, not just from the bounty hunters, but from Ayana's people too. Some watched with curiosity, others with quiet judgment, but none looked surprised to see him at her side. The graying bounty hunter stood near his. Last horse, his face drawn tight with defeat. "Clever woman," he muttered as they approached. "I'll give you that. Clever enough to protect what's mine," Ayana replied. The man's eyes slid to Sterling. "Still claiming you don't know him?" Ayana stepped closer, her hand finding Sterling's without hesitation. "I know him well. I know he's the man who'll share my tent, my life, and my people's future." Something shifted inside Sterling, deep and final. Whatever had tethered him to his old life snapped clean. "She's right," he said, voice steady. "Sterling Rhodes died in this canyon 3 days ago. What came out is someone else." The bounty hunter narrowed his eyes. "And what's that supposed to be?" Sterling looked at Ayana, and in her gaze he saw his answer. "A man who found home." The bounty hunter spat into the dust. "This ain't over. Others will come looking. Let them," Ayana said. Her voice carried more than just sound. It carried bloodline and legacy. "But tell them the truth. Tell them what really happens when a white man meets the Apache Queen." "And what's that?" the man snapped. Ayana's smile returned, cool and certain. Her grip on Sterling's hand didn't falter. The smart ones never want to leave. The bounty hunters turned their horses and rode out, scattered, bitter, and defeated. And as their figures shrank against the canyon walls, Sterling felt the last remnants of the man he used to be fall away like dust from a storm coat. The one who'd arrived broken and running was gone. That night, Sterling sat by the fire outside their tent. Ayana worked her beadwork beside him, her movements calm and steady. And in the quiet, he understood what the stories had always missed. It wasn't that no white man survived meeting the Apache Queen. It's that no man survived unchanged. Some became something better. Regrets? Ayana asked, not looking up from her work. Sterling watched the firelight dance across her face, every line etched into memory. Only that it took me this long to find you. She smiled then. Not her. Sharp, commanding smile. A softer one that warmed everything it touched. The best things, she said, are worth waiting for. As the canyon exhaled around them and night reclaimed its peace, Sterling knew the stories would change. Now, they'd speak of the Apache Queen who showed mercy, of the cowboy who stopped running and chose to stay. They'd whisper how sometimes the most dangerous thing a woman can do is offer a man the chance to become who he was meant to be, and every version would begin the same way. They said no white man survived meeting the Apache Queen until a cowboy shared her tent and found himself home at last. If this story moved you, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale, where destiny and courage collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know what moment hit hardest for you. And if you'd like to support more stories like this, consider a super chat. Your support helps keep the fire burning.